You're listening to the Cryptid Creatures Show with Brian and Todd. If you're enjoying the show or would like to submit an encounter, visit our website at www.cryptidcreatures.net, or you can email us at info@cryptidcreatures.co. Now back to the show.
Now, the next thing that happened was when I was actually deployed into Vietnam. I was on patrol, and we were rushed by about, 10 to 12 Rock Apes. The Rock Apes are walking on two legs, and they go probably 300 pounds or better. They were just nothing but a mass of muscle. They used to pick up these huge rocks and throw them, and they just wouldn't go down with rifle fire. And we ended up having to use grenades to chase them off.
Welcome back to the Cryptid Creatures Show. I am Brian, and with me as always is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Brian, have you ever heard of a rock ape before?
Sure have. Those are the ones in Vietnam, right?
Yeah. I don't know what these things are. I guess they're considered a cryptid. They may be some form of Bigfoot. I don't know exactly if they're the same thing, but there's some strange ape-like creature over there in Vietnam. You know, they talk about that, and
bipedal.
Yeah, you hear about different variations of smaller versions of Bigfoot-type creatures over there. Tonight's guest is Bill, and Bill was in Vietnam, and Bill had some interaction with some rock apes. Very interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, that should be cool.
So we'll bring him on and see what he's got to say. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's get him.
Hello?
There he is. How you doing, Bill?
Wow. I'm doing okay. How about you guys?
Good.
Doing good. All right. Well, thanks for being here and talking with us.
Well, that's fine. I told you would, so here we go.
All right. Well, I'm ready to hear it. I'm excited.
Yeah, I got Brian excited about some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. You had some experiences and encounters starting way back when you were, a teenager?
Well, I was a teenager, but I was in the Army. That was the first time. So
okay.
Then the occurrence I had with the dog man was in after I got out of the Army. This was more in 96, 97 time frame. So,
well, just start back from then, and when
just start from the beginning and roll it.
Well, which one do you want to hear first?
Just start with the first one.
Well, the first one was back in September or October of 1970. The unit I was in the Army had just been called up to go to Vietnam, so you had to go through about 3 months of some real heavy training before they deployed you over there. So we were doing that training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and we were out in the heavy woods there. It was late at night, dark, pitch dark, because it was heavy canopy overhead. And we were moving against an aggressor force. Now, the aggressor force was a Ranger-trained reserve unit that did this for the Army. So the orders came down from the main body that my scout group was supposed to move out in front of us, because I was a cavalry scout, and scout out in front. So we spread out, about 25 yards apart, and started moving forward. And it was really, really dark. It was hard to be quiet because all the sticks and the leaves and what have you was on the ground. But we managed to be pretty quiet. And I got about 300 yards ahead, and I ran into this great big, I believe it was an oak tree. And so I got down in a prone position and started scanning the area. Now, back then, the only thing we had for night vision were the old starlight scopes. So I scanned back and forth, didn't see anything, but I did notice something. It was dead quiet. I mean, the bugs weren't buzzing. You couldn't hear anything. The crickets, the frogs, nothing. So I thought that was kind of strange. But then again, I thought, okay, maybe it's the aggressor squad. They must be close, So I went to get up. I put my hands down on what I thought was moss on the tree and to push myself up. Well, the minute I pushed myself up, all hell broke loose. I had put my hand down on a booger's foot, and he screamed so loud that I thought I wasn't going to be able to hear it for 10 minutes afterwards. So I jumped up and I started backing up and I started firing my M16 at it. Well, we were using blanks, so nothing was getting hurt. And my company thought I was in a firefight, that I'd run into the aggressor squad and was in a firefight. So they came rushing my way. Well, the minute this thing saw that, it took off. And I mean, he was tearing stuff up. I mean, it looked like there was a tunnel or a lane right through the woods where he went, knocking bush out of the way, trees over. Anyway, about 15, 20 minutes later, these 4 or 5 Suburbans show up, black Suburbans, at least that type of vehicle. But they were painted flat black, and about 20 guys got out of these Suburbans, and they were all in black fatigues, and they just took over the scene. And I was taken into a medical tent, looked over from head to toe. They took blood, they checked my hand where I touched it, and I was being grilled the whole time by this lieutenant colonel that was there. And of course, you know, what could I do? I told him everything that happened, and over and over and over again. And the rest of my squad was going through the same thing, but you know, they were far enough away that they didn't really see anything. And to tell you the truth, I really didn't either. It was pitch black out there. All it was a silhouette that was blacker than the rest of the black. Anyway, they finally let me out 2 hours later. And they told me, you know, they made me sign papers saying, you know, I can't talk about this. Well, that was over 50 years ago, so I'm not really worried about it too much anymore. Later on, after we got back to the barracks, I got my platoon sergeant to the side, and I said, "Hey, Sergeant, what the hell was that thing?" And the sergeant said, "Well, they don't really know." He said, "But it was 8 feet 11 inches tall and weighed 1,000 to 1,200 pounds." That's what their estimate was, because they had guys out there doing scientific stuff, taking measurements, you know, all that stuff. And then they had 6 guys that went after it with heavy weapons. Of course, I doubt very seriously they ever caught up with it. And that's pretty much the story. I mean, you know, I'm not a researcher, but you know those damn things know when you're in the woods.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
You'll never see them, but they're watching you. So I don't know whether he knew I was there or not. But I don't think he was there to hurt anybody, of course. I think he was just trying to figure out what all these crazy people were in these woods shooting shit.
Yeah, he was just trying to figure you guys out. Yep.
Right, exactly. I mean, because we were a cavalry unit, and, you know, there were big trucks and armored vehicles and all that stuff that was involved in all this. So, yeah, there was a lot of noise going on. So until, you know, we got into the woods and we were actually in the exercise. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
And to tell you the truth, it was a real Sherman moment. So
I bet.
But yeah, it was, but that was in 1970. Of course, that's something that's kind of burned into your brain. It's hard to forget that.
Oh, yeah, you're not going to forget that.
Mm-mm. And then the next occurrence, that's the only time I ever ran into a Sasquatch. I'm a city boy, you know, so, yeah, when I was young, I used to run down into southern Indiana and all them woods, but I was usually with a group of people. We didn't run into anything. So, but most of the time I lived my life in Indianapolis or Omaha or, you know, New York when I was stationed in New York. You know, I was always around the city. The only time I really was in any kind of jungle or woods was when I was in the service. Now, the next thing that happened was when I was actually deployed into Vietnam. And I was on patrol, and we were rushed by about, I don't know, 10 to 12 rock apes. Now, the rock apes are just what they say. They're an ape. They're a two-legged, walking on two-legged apes. And they go 5 to 6 pounds or 5 to 6 feet. I'm sorry. And I would say probably 300 pounds or better. They were just nothing but a mass of muscle. And they got the name Rock Ape because they used to pick up these huge rocks and throw them at vehicles and at people. And they just wouldn't go down with rifle fire. The M16s back then, the 223 rounds, well, 5.56 actually, rounds just didn't seem to have much of an effect against them. And we ended up having to use grenades to chase them off because the rifles were doing nothing. And, I'd heard stories from other vets. As a matter of fact, I got a Marine friend that dealt with them. And they had to literally bring in 50 cal machine guns to chase them off when they started throwing rocks at the troops and vehicles. So they were a bit of a problem, but you didn't hear much about it because it was rare. Everybody knew they were there from the stories, but it was rare to actually run into them. So there's that story. I mean, there wasn't much to that story, but that's a fact. There again, another Sherman moment, because there was only 8 of us and there was about a dozen of them. So it was it was a little scary.
I've heard of these rock apes before. I think we've heard of these things. I always thought they were kind of a Bigfoot-like creature, but you're saying they were just more like a regular kind of ape? Or...
Yeah, they were an ape. They looked like a gorilla in the face. The thing of it was, it was at night. Okay, you're in the Vietnam jungle. Okay, it's pitch black there too. Mm-hmm. So the only way that we even got other than the silhouette of them, coming through the bush, to actually see what they look like was from the flash of the grenades when they went off. And you could see their muscle mass and you could see their face. And, just for that fraction of a second. And I'm telling you, there was nothing anywhere close to human looking at all. They looked like a gorilla in the face. Same pointed head, the whole 9 yards. The only difference was that they were on 2 feet instead of 4. So
they walked like a human.
Well, I couldn't tell.
We'll say that.
Yeah, they were bipedal. I mean, they didn't use their hands to walk on. When they were coming at us, they were on 2 feet.
Do those things still exist over there, you think?
Oh, well, I imagine so, because they were rare when I was over there.
Uh-huh.
I imagine they get up in that jungle. I mean, that's a massive amount of jungle there when you're talking Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos. Mm-hmm. That's all jungle. I mean, other than the rice paddies. But
yeah, I'm looking here. The rock apes of Vietnam, they are considered a cryptid. So there's some kind of offtake of some kind of ape or something. It appears to be maybe not something that we really know about. But these things were aggressive, huh? Do you think they would have killed you guys if they would have got close enough to you?
I think so, but at that time, most of the time they just try to chase you off. That's why they throw rocks at. We evidently stumbled into a nesting area, or they're territorial. We to do that. But the grenades chased them off. I mean, that's an awful loud bang, and like shrapnel flying everywhere. So
if you guys would have taken a different path, you probably wouldn't have even seen them.
Right, exactly. I mean, they're just like, I guess you could call them a cryptid because you don't see them.
Right.
The accounts that I heard of, like I said, the Marines ran into them. I knew a communication specialist that was dropped off in the mountains to set up a listening post, and he saw one that kept trying to kept pulling on his cord. That he runs that cord up there. And it kept coming out and wanting to play with the cord. And he told me about that. But there again, the ape saw him and he looked at him, and then he just let the cord go and went back into the jungle, and that was all of that. But it wasn't necessarily aggressive. So I think we stumbled into one of their nesting areas or territory or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, if we did, like you said, if I'd have been on a different trail, we might have not even seen them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're considered a cryptid, huh? Well,
that's what they're saying.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Well, I know that there's been a couple of professors that have gone to Vietnam to study them, try to find them, but I don't know how successful they were. So I know somebody was looking into them at one time. But now there's all kinds of stories. Some people say there's big as Sasquatch. Some people don't. The ones we saw were 5 to 6 feet. So,
okay.
And then they were called rock apes. That's what I was told. So, even saw a tiger in there once.
Oh, wow.
There's all kinds of stuff in those jungles.
I believe it. Yeah, those jungles.
Everything in that jungle tried to kill you. You got the two-stepper snakes, the coral snakes. I mean, just everything. So, including people. So, I mean, it was a come to Jesus moment. Let's just say.
Yeah, we might have to do a show on those rock apes. Thinking about this here, Brian. We could
sure.
check these things out and dig into these more a little bit.
Dig into them, and I think if you put it out, there'll be enough veterans that'll come and say, "Yeah, I saw them."
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we need to do.
Yeah. Real quick, back to the first one with all the guys in the black showing up. Who do you think they were? Where do you think they were government officials or what?
I'm sure they were because they've had to have dealt with them before. They wouldn't have got there that fast where we were at. And I'm sure they ran into them before. I bet they've had encounters with them before because those were a special group and they were ready to go when they got there. I mean, those 6 guys, you couldn't help but see where the thing went because, like I said, there was like a lane or a tunnel right through the woods where it went. And they were all geared out with heavy weapons. I mean, in other words, bigger than M16s. They were carrying SOCOMs and 308 sniper rifles. I mean, they were going for bear, and there was 6 of them, and they took off almost immediately. And then there was a bunch of guys that were scientific, scientist type guys, and then they had medical staff there. So they came in prepared.
I'm sure they've done that before, I'm sure.
Exactly. I mean, and they were ready. And I've heard other guys say that there's been, since there's been a lot of activity at Fort Jackson, but that's not uncommon. Most military bases anymore have some kind of activity on them from the Sasquatch. So even Dogman.
You're not kidding. We are seeing that more and more. Every time there's an encounter going on, we found out it's near a military base or
even in Kansas. I mean, it's flat and it's flat as Kansas is and weedy and all that. That military base there has had several encounters. So and most of them
Dogman?
Both.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Dogman and Sasquatch. So Fort Riley, I think it's called. I'm not sure. So the last one, if you want to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Save the best.
In 1996 or 7. Okay, I would just gotten out of the Army in 95. And it hadn't been all that long since I'd been back from Desert Storm. And so, I was still in pretty good shape. And I met this girl, lady, whatever. She was 18 years younger than I am, but we got along and we hit it off really good. We went on several dates and everything was going well. So one night it was a nice late summer night. We decided to go for a ride. I had a Jeep, took the roof off and we took off. And there's this park, Hummel Park is what it's called. It's about 10 miles north of Omaha. So we went there to go to the lookout. You have to drive up and up and up and up, and then you get up to the top, and there's a lookout there. So we went up to the lookout, got out, looked over it. You could see for miles all the landscape and the woods, and the Missouri River was right there, and it was quite beautiful, actually. Well, we were there talking and looking at the sights, and then she she tells me she has to go to the bathroom. She needs to tinkle. So I said, okay, so we were out in the middle of nowhere at this park. It's 11:30 at night. There wasn't anybody there. So she just decided she was just going to open the door and do her duty there. And so I said, okay, I went the other side of the car and turned my back, being a gentleman. And as she was doing that, just a few moments after that, I wouldn't say screamed, but it was an alarming sound. So I reached in the car because after I got back from Desert Storm, I didn't go anywhere without being armed. I had a 1911 45, and I also had either a Bowie knife or a machete. Well, that night I had the machete, so I grabbed him out of the car and I came around the front of the car and I saw her. She was shaking, and I looked at her face and she was scared, and then she pointed and I looked at about 25 yards away, well, not yards, but feet away from us was a dog, and it was a big dog, and it was standing up on its back legs. And I immediately moved in between it and her, and just looked at it, and it was just looking at me, and then it smiled. Now, talk about something creepy. When you see a dog smile, that it was a little scary. So I thought, well, we're at a standoff here. We can't go anywhere because all around us was, 100-foot drop off. The only way we could go is back the way we came in, and that damn dog was standing there. So I thought, well, if it's going to smile at me, I'm going to smile back. So I screwed up the most evil grin I could come up with, and I dragged that machete along the ground and raised the 45, and I took a step forward. I mean, what else was I going to do? And it barked, and it just took off. It just took off. It just booked it. And then up out of the brush came two more of these damn things. Now, I didn't know they were there. Neither did she. Neither one of us knew. They were in the brush right next to us. Couldn't have been 20 feet away. And they took off following him. And needless to say, we got the hell out of there in a hurry. Now, as a description, it looked like a dog, only standing up. I mean, it wasn't an Arnold Schwarzenegger looking thing with the big muscles and all that. It was not that big. I'm 6 feet, 210. Well, at the time I was. It was kind of hunched over, so it would be hard to say how tall it would have been standing up. But hunched over, it was about my height. And I would say at the most it weighed 250. But the thing of it was, I think it was a youngster, because I think they were just out and they thought it would be a fun game to play. And then they changed their mind when I made that aggressive move. And they decided to get out of there. And it was a dark color. The face looked like something. It looked like a Doberman and a German Shepherd got together and had a baby. That's what the face looked like. A cross between those two breeds. It didn't look like a wolf. The other two that took off were about the same size as it. So I'm thinking it was maybe a group of youngsters that hadn't had a face-to-face encounter with a human before. And, everybody knows that most of these cryptids know what a gun is, and I had a gun and that great big blade. I don't know, maybe it just decided that it wasn't worth it. And it took off. And I'll tell you one thing, when they say they're fast, believe it. I mean, they were out of sight in a matter of just seconds. And we got in the car and took off.
Did you notice their hands? Did they have the claws, or were they?
You know what? I didn't pay that much of attention. Look, I was looking at this thing's face. I wanted to see his eyes because, I wanted to know what he was going to do.
Right.
So I didn't really see any hands. I'm sure they did have hands. He had a long arm, so I can tell you that. And I know they weren't paws. When he ran away, I could tell they weren't paws. If they were like raccoon paws or raccoon hands. But like I said, it was kind of traumatic. So I wasn't paying that much attention at that. I was paying more attention to getting her the hell out of there. So, so we got out of there, and unfortunately, after that, she decided that I must have been one crazy SOB because I never heard from her again.
Well,
now that's a lie because she tracked me down a couple of years ago on Facebook, and we're talking again. But I hadn't seen her in 25 years. So
okay.
But anyway,
did you guys talk about? Are you guys talking about the experience? Have you brought that up?
No, hell no.
She never brought it up, so you're not gonna?
No, she did not want to talk about it. I said, remember the park? And she goes, no. That kind of told me, okay, we'll talk about something else. I know she was scared. She shook all the way home. So
yeah. Did you see these things walking on two legs or just standing up? Did they run on four legs when they took off, or what?
When I first saw it, it was just standing there. Now, when he took off, the one that I confronted, when he took off, he was on two, but I noticed that he dropped down to four when the other two came out of the bush, and they came out on all fours. So the one that I confronted, he ran on two legs for a while and then dropped down as the other two caught him, and then they all took off, and I mean at a high rate of speed. I was amazed how fast they were. Greyhound wouldn't have a chance. So, I don't know what to tell you. And I still to this day think they were youngsters because of every count I listened to or ever heard of, these things are huge and monstrous and all this. These just look like dogs. I mean, I'm serious. I think when he was standing there, I noticed that the upper torso, was more like a human, but it still was a dog size. You know what I mean? But it did, it had the hocks. The arms came straight off the sides like a human and kind of hung out. Now, like I said, I only saw that because I was looking at his face and I could see his shoulders. He had shoulders though. Not like a dog. I mean, so yeah, okay, he was a little more human-like, so just smaller.
He had some human.
Yeah.
So yeah, he probably was. They probably were young ones.
Well, that's the only thing I can think of because, like I said, he wasn't that big. He was my size. But what I could tell you one thing, looking in them eyes, you could see the intelligence. That's why I was watching his eyes. I wanted to see what he was going to do. He wasn't a dummy. He was smart, and I think he figured out that this might not be a fun game to play.
That's why I think it. Yeah, you're right. They're probably the young ones because he smiled at you, like all right.
Well, I've heard a lot of accounts where they do that just to frighten you because they show all them teeth that way, and he had some teeth. I will say that. Of course, most dogs do, but I mean, there were more sharp teeth in that mouth than a dog has. I mean, but then again, like I said, I was kind of focused at the time, and I was scared, and I didn't want anything to happen to her. That's why I moved to the front. I was about 5 or 6 feet in front of the rear of the car when I moved on him, and those damn other two ran right behind me between the car and me. So yeah, it was kind of intense, but
yeah.
And I've never been back to that place since. Like I said, that place, I found out later on that they'd had more than one dogman sighting at that park, and it's known for orbs. A lot of orbs out there. Of course, there used to be an old Indian outpost out there, and there were graves that they found. They found, at least a dozen dead bodies out there. People just take dead bodies out there and dump them. And, it's known as a paranormal place. It's known as a spooky park. And very few people even go out there anymore, even during the daytime. So, and I haven't been out there in years, but I'd give $1 to a dime that they probably close it up.
How far from there is the military base?
Well, Offutt Air Force Base is in Bellevue, but that's quite a ways away. And, that's a big runway. It's an Air Force base. So there's not a whole lot of woods there. There's a lot of homes and houses there all around that, because it's in the middle of Bellevue, Nebraska. So, and other than that, I'd say, from there, probably another 40 miles and you're on the Omaha Indian Reservation. Now, they have a lot of activity out there, especially with the Sitanka or Sasquatch. That's, everybody knows it. They call it Sitanka because it's a lot of Lakota there, a lot of Lakota Sioux there, but it's called the Omaha Indian Reservation. But that's 40 miles upriver. And like I said, that Hummel Park's 300 yards from the Missouri River on the other side of the street. So they're probably using the Missouri as a corridor,
I'm looking at it on a map right now. I see Hummel Park Nature Center. I see the river between Iowa and Nebraska. And just north of there is a National Wildlife Refuge. So I'm wondering if that's where they're kind of hanging out and doing their thing.
Well, it could be. That could be. And like I said, I think they use the Missouri River as kind of a travel corridor because they're not seen there all the time. They're only seen there at certain times a year, at least so far. But I've only heard of 2 other encounters at Hummel Park, and they were. That was probably 2000. The last time there was encounter, it was probably 2016. So, and then I haven't heard anything since. But like I said, I don't really go out that way anymore. And, in Omaha, they're not going to put it on the evening news. So I haven't heard any other podcasts say anything about anything going on there. So since, but I'm sure there is.
We can find out.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is.
There's the DeSoto National Wildlife Refuge just north of the other refuge as well. Boyer Chute National Refuge is closer to the park, but then north of that,
a bunch out there.
Yeah, I can definitely see some activity going on. And then,
and then you got the Indian reservations right up in that same kind of area.
Yeah.
So, it's all along the river. When you go along that big river, there's woods everywhere. So, it doesn't turn into farmland and a little further east or a little further west, but along the river. Oh yeah, I used to hunt along the river down in what was the name of that county? I can't even remember, but it was south of Bellevue, down past Plattsmouth, and then you turn left. And I used to hunt. There was a quarter mile between the road that I parked on and the river. I used to hunt that area there, and I never ran into anything. Deer there, we shot a lot of deer there, but that doesn't mean they weren't there. I was oblivious to it, so I wouldn't have known if I'd have seen something, what it was anyway. But I actually didn't really start. I never even did anything when I saw the one in 1970. Of course, I was kind of busy for a while after that. And then I didn't really start looking into a whole lot of this stuff until I got out of the Army, until the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. So I've amassed quite a bit of knowledge. Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a researcher. I don't go out in the woods. I'm a disabled vet. Too many years of jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. But so my lower body won't allow me to do any traipsing through the woods. I'm lucky to be able to walk to the car. But I do I'm an armchair researcher. I read a lot of stuff online and listen to certain people, certain podcasts on television, ones that I trust, because there's so much malarkey out there.
There is.
So that's how I gain what knowledge I have, and it's minuscule, compared to some. So the only knowledge I have is from seeing damn things. So
you would have as much as anybody.
That's the best knowledge, yeah.
Because nobody else knows. I mean, nobody really knows where these things are coming from or what they are.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to know. What are they? And then I'd like to know, why aren't we being informed about them? Because I know that Uncle Sam knows about it.
For sure.
So I know for a fact. But
from firsthand experience.
Well, why aren't they telling the people, especially the young people? They're letting them run these woods with these things. Now, I wouldn't worry about the Sasquatch so much, but Dogman, they're known to be aggressive. So, but what can you do?
What did you do after you guys got in your car and left? And you dropped her off, whatever. What did you tell anybody what you saw?
No. They'd look at me like I was nuts. As a matter of fact, I finally won family get-together. I finally sat down while everybody was telling stories, and I told the story of the Sasquatch at Fort Jackson. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. He said, "Yeah, go ahead, bud, have another beer." And so I just don't tell anybody anymore. The only people that ever hear about these are like yourself. I've done one other interview 2-3 years ago, and you're the ones that have heard it. Nobody else has heard it. Nobody else believes it. So,
well, we believe you.
Yeah,
tell you that.
And we want to thank you for your service too, Bill. We appreciate that.
Thank you
more than anything.
Well, thank you for the support, guys. I appreciate it.
Sounds like you were in the military for a long time, and
21 years.
Oh. Wow.
Bigfoot, I want to tend to think it's been around for a long time. But what is this Dogman thing coming from? I mean,
well, if you want to get into the history books, you can go back to Egypt time, and there were dogmen. There were even a race of people back then that had dog heads, and they were people. They couldn't speak, but they were good workers. And Saint Christopher started out as a dog-headed man and turned to Christianity. And when he did, the Lord took the head away and put a human head on it. That's even in the Bible. So, and a lot of scholars have come up with that. So I don't think so. I think they've been around. They just haven't hit the media and been seen or known as long as Sasquatch has. I think they've been around. They've just been smart enough to stay out of sight. Yeah. But now, with all the defoliation, these damn land grabbers, cutting down forests to build buildings and build houses, we're taking their habitat, and so now you're going to find them more and more people seeing them. And then we got the internet now, which we didn't have before. And these people are now coming on and saying, okay, back in the 50s, I saw this thing. So you got more information coming in, and it just feels like, but I think they've been around since the time of Egypt. So, Anubis was a dog-headed god, so that's just my opinion.
And then you just hear about the talk about the werewolf in general and all that history.
Well, the difference is a werewolf has a shorter snout, is much more aggressive, and it doesn't have a tail, and it doesn't have the hocked legs either. So, and supposedly they're real. Now, they're not changing by the moonlight. Once you're a werewolf, just like the Dogman, you're a werewolf. They just call them that. It's just a different kind of dog-headed cryptid. So at least that's what I hear from the guy I know that was let's
That
just
makes
say a
sense.
contractor. So, one of these kill teams that you hear about. So whether it's true or not, I don't know. I couldn't tell you for sure, but that's what I hear.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd want to see another one or a Bigfoot?
Maybe, maybe, if it was in a non-threatening manner, because I'm going to tell you something. I would never shoot one because they look too human. But if my life was in danger, I'm going to put one in his eye socket. So, but maybe I wouldn't mind seeing one just to reaffirm that that's what I saw.
Right.
Now, in the first place, I never really saw this thing. Okay, all I saw was a black outline that was blacker than the night. So I could see his size and his bulk, and everything like that. So I never saw his face. I couldn't tell you what color his fur was, anything, because it was just black out there. And then, and I never thought to throw the starlight scope up. Like people
why
can't
would you at that point.
Yeah, people don't pull out their cameras, when they see one. So, or their camera on their phone or whatever. It's just one of those things, and you don't think about it.
Yeah.
So, but
When that thing screamed, did you feel it? Was it the?
oh, like I said, I couldn't hear for 10 minutes afterwards. I mean, it was loud, and yeah, you felt it. You felt it in the ground. You felt it in the ground in your feet. And you felt it in your chest. It was. I couldn't even begin to describe. But these people that say it's going to a concert and standing in front of a speaker. Well, that's worse than that, because I've done that. But it's crazy. It really is. It's crazy. You just don't understand until you get screamed at, especially from 5 feet away.
Point blank range, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he was screaming right down at me, like, SOB, you stepped on my foot.
He's probably like, what are you doing?
I'm sure I startled him as much as he startled me.
Yeah, sounds like it. I'm surprised you got that close without him knowing, but maybe he was too focused on your buddies or something.
He was probably.
Yeah, it could be. And I was on the ground, okay, next to that tree in the bush, in camo, completely camoed out, including my skin, and he might not have seen me laying there and walked up on that tree while I was laying there.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't hear him. I did, like I said, I did hear that there was absolutely no sound anywhere. And I attributed that to the aggressive force, but now I think it was probably him. And but other than that, I don't know where he came from. And he just was there, I couldn't see anything down on the ground. So when I put my hand down, I thought I was putting my hand down on that moss that grows at the bottom of trees when I was pushing up. But it turned out it was his foot. It was hair that I was feeling. Wow. And when he yanked it away, I thought, oh, my God.
I'm going to die.
Well, that's what I said. It was a real Sherman moment. So
not too many people can say they've had physical contact with a Bigfoot. So
that's true.
You might not have seen a lot of detail of it because it was so dark.
But you felt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Mm-hmm. It didn't take very long before he yanked it away. But
yeah, I'm sure he was gone, but
man, he hit his head on a branch as he turned around to leave.
Yeah.
And he's right at the forehead area, and then he took off, and then that's where we got our measurements from. So on how tall he was, and I guess he had footprints there too. And
did you?
Did
you smell your hand?
No.
You didn't?
No, man, when I came back after that, those guys were here already, and they just dragged me straight into the tent, into the medical tent, and they checked my hand out. I don't know what they were swabbing it and all that other stuff. And then they put antibiotic cream on it and all that stuff. And then they took blood and, did all the check vitals and all that stuff. So, and then that colonel, I wasn't paying any attention to what they were doing. I know they stuck me with a needle once or twice, but that colonel was, he's a lieutenant colonel. He was grilling me. I mean, so I was paying more attention to him. And I knew something was up when I saw those guys get out in black fatigues. Okay. I was wearing green fatigues, and camoed out. And they were all in black. And I said, okay, something's not right here. What's going on? This was a team. Okay. They did that. This is what they did. So I'm sure they had encountered it before. They wouldn't have got there that fast. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and it only took them 15 minutes to get there. So they were ready. I suppose they have them on standby whenever somebody's in the woods training, just in case.
I would imagine.
That's weird. Yeah, that is weird that they do that.
But
you said that the dogman had kind of barked at you before it ran off. Was it a bark, or was it more like a huff or a growl? Or
no, it was a bark.
Really?
Yeah, It was just like a wolf bark. They'll bark every once in a while. He just barked once and turned and took off, and then the other two followed him. It was like an order. Okay, let's go.
That was probably a call to get the other.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, there wasn't any howling. There wasn't any huffing. There wasn't any growling. It was just the grin, which was scary as hell. And then he barked when he took off, and that was it. That was the only sound that was made. And you couldn't hear these things run. I mean, they were so quiet, it's unbelievable. But they were right there, 20 feet away in them bush, and we didn't. Neither one of us knew they were there. So they had to have been there when we walked out on that point to look out over the river and stuff. So they were sitting there watching us. And then when we came back to the car, that's when that one came out and blocked our exit. So they were smart. At least that one was. You could look in his eyes and see the intelligence. That's why I wanted to keep my eyes on his eyes, because the eyes will tell you what's coming next.
What do you think would have happened if you would have shot him?
I don't know.
Who knows
If the M45s didn't do the job, that machete would have. And I might have been able to take the one, but not all three of them. With a gun and a machete,
right?
There was a chance. And I'm telling you what, all those rounds would have gone in the head. So
yeah.
And if that didn't work, I had that machete. But scraping that machete along the ground and taking that step forward, I think I unnerved it. And like I said, it barked and took off. So
you got a lot of balls. I'll give you credit for doing that. I don't know.
Yeah, no kidding.
Who could have pulled that?
Well, what am I going to do? Okay, guys, don't think it's that big a deal. What was I going to do? I had the lady there. We couldn't go backwards unless we wanted to go off a 100-foot drop. The only way to go was forward. So I took the step forward. I said, okay, if we're going to go, let's go. And I took the step forward, and that was enough. I guess
he called his bluff.
All right. He probably hadn't had any human do that. So that sign of aggression, I think, is what made him decide that, like I said, it wasn't going to be a fun game to play. So, and they took off, thank God.
What's kind of concerning about it is his two buddies hiding over in the bushes,
right,
waiting to
what was going to happen, right?
What you're going to do,
exactly,
right? I think they were watching this. One that was standing in front of me was probably the alpha of the three, the bunch, and they were waiting to see what he was going to do. And when he barked and took off, well, they took off too. So
it's just terrifying to think that these things are out there running around the woods.
Yeah, it is. But you know what? All the people that go out in the woods and all the parks and everything, and nobody ever, most of them don't see anything. I think I don't want, I wouldn't want people to be scared out of the woods, because that's enjoyment for them too. We got every bit as much right to be in those woods as those things do. So if you just keep your head on a swivel, and know that there's a possibility those things might be out there. If you see them, or if you feel pressure, or if you feel like you're being watched, which a lot of people do, it's real simple. Just back out of there and get out of there. Walk back the way you came. And chances are that nothing's going to happen. So it never scared me out of the woods. I mean, but so many people, I feel bad for them because they've hunted all their lives and they have one experience with a Sasquatch or a dogman and they never go back and hunt again. And that's sad.
Yeah, we've had a couple people on that did that.
Well, all you got to do is go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or take baby steps,
Yeah.
Once you get calmed down and everything, take baby steps. Just walk inside the woods, 50 feet, look around and come out and just do it in baby steps. But chances are you may never see it again.
True. Yeah.
The only thing that I know that tags you is the Sasquatch, and once they know you, you're all right. Everybody, all of them know you. So if they did, there is no predator in the world that's going to warn you before they attack and kill you and eat you. You're not going to hear them coming, and they're going to come from all directions. But if you got one huffing at you or throwing rocks at you, or like the dogmen like to do, step out in the trail and growl at you, they're not wanting to kill you. They just want you out of there for some reason. There's kids there, or they're hunting, or whatever it might be. And I really truly believe that, because I don't know of a predator out there that's going to warn you before they strike. Do you?
No.
No, that's a great point. That is a great point. If they wanted you dead, you'd be dead.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a snowball's chance in Hades. So,
Nope.
So yeah,
Well,
that's my feelings on the matter.
Well, Bill, we want to thank you for coming on and talking with us and telling us these encounters and experiences. They're really cool and awesome. And
yeah, that was amazing.
Well, I appreciate it, guys.
Oh, we appreciate it too, man.
We appreciate you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Be safe if you're out in the woods, and I don't
appreciate
think we need to worry about you though.
No, tell everybody, just like I said, just keep your head on a swivel and know that just have it in the back of your mind that stuff might be out there. And I think you'll be okay. I mean, really, if you can carry, because there's other things besides them out there, like mountain lions and bears and all that other stuff.
Right.
So just be safe. Think safe.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
All right, bud.
All right.
I appreciate you doing this for me.
Oh, we appreciate
you coming on.
Yep. You have yourself a good one, and take care, bud. Thank you again.
You too.
Thanks.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right. That Bill, that dude's a man's man. You know what I'm saying? That guy is like, he's just a badass. I mean, Vietnam, Rock Apes, grenades, standing up to a dog man. I mean, this guy has no fear. There's no fear to this guy.
Man, I don't think I could have put myself between, I don't know, a dog man. I don't know.
I would have been like, pull your pants up, get your ass in the car, and we're gone. That's all there is to it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I'm glad we got Bill on and heard his encounter.
Me too. That was a good one.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for listening. And guests, thanks for being here and making this what it is. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, we appreciate all of you.
I appreciate you too, as always, my friend.
You too, brother.
All right, I'm done with this. Let's get out of here.
Yep. See ya.